Strange Darling is directed by J.T. Molnar and stars Willa Fitzgerald, Kyle Gallner, and among others. And in this story, well, it's hard to describe without giving anything away, but it's pretty much about a serial killer that's going after someone, and there's more to it, but I'll just leave it at that. It's just basically a cat and mouse type of game of a serial killer going after its victim. Now now to get into more detail, going into this film, this is one of those kind of movies that I went completely not really knowing much about. I think I did watch the trailer of it once, but didn't, and just kind of thought it was going to be a typical person on the run, and it's dealing with a serial killer going after somebody, and it is about that. But I'm keeping it very vague because this is one of those kind of movies that if I describe any kind of plot point, it can pretty much get into some spoiler territory. So I'm just gonna have to leave it as one of those movies that you kind of have to go in blind for. But there's something that's really unique with this that I'll get into, but the gimmick that the movie's kind of going with is that it's telling a very non-linear type of structure where things are pretty much shot out of order, where in the timeline it's divided up into chapters, and each of the chapters they're spliced out of order to where you're getting information as it comes across, and as you start to see the movie unravel, it goes back to another scene that's from earlier in the film, and then it goes into a scene that goes. It basically starts out as like in the middle of the film, and then it works its way back to the beginning, so to speak, and it jumbles back and forth. So it's kind of going like a style that's similar to Christopher Nolan's Memento or any of Tarantino's films that kind of go out of order in sequence of events. So going into this film, I kind of went into it with just very open-minded because I didn't really know much about it other than hearing some great things about it. And I kept the trailers pretty vague because it was one of those that it wasn't really on my radar, but I still looked into it as upcoming movies that were out, and a friend of mine also was talking about it too. So I went into this just not really just very open-minded, and I gotta be honest, this is actually one of those movies that not only really surprised me, but it really blew me away with how interesting and very unique it was of how it told its story. So to get my pros out of the way, I thought the cast in this were really fantastic. I thought Willa Fitzgerald was not only very captivating as the girl that's on the run, but also Kyle Gallner is I've really enjoyed his performance in a lot of films he's done, especially with his other films that he did like with Smile, and then previously when he was in movies when he had a small cameo in Scream 5, and then before that when he had other roles like in Kevin Smith's Red State and stuff. So the guy has come a long way as doing type of horror thriller type of movies, and so here he really gets to showcase a lot of his skills as an actor, and especially in like a really big leading role like this. And both him and also Willa Fitzgerald I thought really had great, fantastic chemistry. The way that they're kind of playing each other and stuff and all that, and just the way that it comes across, they both work in their own right in this film. So the cast were good, and there was also some other surprises that show up that here and there that I was really shocked to see that showed up. There was Egg Bailey Jr. that shows up in this, and then you also have Barbara Hershey. The way that the movie tells its story, I thought, was not only very compelling the way it played it out, because when you're thrown into it being non-linear, it's one of those kind of movies that you kind of have to really pay attention to a lot of stuff, because it tries to get you on the hook from the very beginning, like I was saying earlier, being thrown in the middle of the film, and then it works its way up where you're starting to see twist after twist on some stuff that you think is going to one direction, and then it leads to another. And that I think really works in its own regard, because it doesn't play out like in the traditional sense, and I'll leave it there, because this is one of those movies that I can't really like go into really a whole lot of stuff about, because a lot of the pros I do have, they really go into more spoiler territory. But it's one of those movies that you really get into the mind of this type of cat and mouse, literally type of this kind of mind fuck of a movie that does it in a really interesting way. And also the killings in this I thought were really not only very disturbing and brutal at times, but they come out of nowhere at points. And the score, the way it's very haunting a lot of parts, where when the shit goes down and stuff, it was very menacing. And just the very kind of rural area that it's shot that it's set in with Oregon and stuff was a really nice touch. And the cinematography I got to really appreciate with this, because apparently the cinematography in this was actually done by Giovanni Ribisi, who who's only known for acting, and I didn't really know that he did anything behind the scenes, but yeah, he did the director of photography in this, and the colors, the way they play into it, mark a lot of the great emphasis of a lot of the colors red and blue in a lot of scenes, and it really pinpoints a lot of the emotion that you get with some of the character, like what the characters are feeling and stuff, and then other types of symbolism that they're kind of going for. It in a way, it sort of kind of reminds me of Natural Born Killers, but on a different type, on a similar level, but on a different way, if that makes sense, because it's trying to go for a different type of avant-garde type of style that I was really getting myself into, but in a good way. And I know that can be kind of distracting for some that might be thrown off by some of the way it's played out, but I thought it really blended well with the mood and the atmosphere that the movie puts it, that it's set in, especially with it being this very type of rural area that it's mostly taking place in. And so that was great. And then, I mean, there's more I can go into detail, but if I have to get any kind of little minor con, just one little thing, is that it's one of those movies that they could have explored some other areas more deeper in some stuff, because the movie runs about 2 hours, but there's some other kind of stuff that they're kind of hinting at, and they kind of leave it ambiguous, and it would have been nice to kind of like just to explore some like more subtlety, if that makes sense, and I'll leave it there, and it has to do with one of the main characters in the film. So there's just more they really could have added on to and kind of explored in some ways, but I still thought it really worked, and it definitely will go down as one of my biggest surprises of the year, and it was honestly a film that now it's actually one that I could actually rewatch and kind of pick up on some more things on things more, and kind of make it to where, much like Memento, it's the movie that you want to try to watch it like kind of backwards, or it's a movie that puts you in that kind of interesting mood of watching it out of order, so that it unfolds later on in the film. And so with that, I'm going to give it a low phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who've also seen Strange Darling, let me know in the comments what you thought about it, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.